hindsight's a really weird thing, especially when it comes to things like politics or history. We know how that conflict turned out, or what happened, what decisions led to it, and what were indeed the consequences leading to it after. And I think we are in one such situation of where we had Boris Johnson, his absolutely appalling record in doing, and promising all kinds of sort of crazy, lunatic, wonderful things, which he was never going to deliver on. He was desperately trying to, promise everything to everyone in all of his different aspects of the party. And there was no way he could have continued to do that. Absolutely no way. So his fall was really only a matter of time. And as a lot of people put it very bluntly, the fall of Boris Johnson was no one else's fault but Boris Johnson's. He was not the guy for the job. The Northern Ireland Protocol and his Brexit bill is a disaster. It was always going to be a disaster. But it was done on the promise to all those Brexit hardliners that don't worry, because as soon as we've done it, we can get Brexit done, and then we can go back and change it. Just as if you can just go like that, boom, changed. But that's not what is really happening. And I think we are reaching to a point of, and I think you will probably see a lot of people start to think this way, or at least ask the question, who was worse, Johnson or Truss? And maybe some people might be saying it's a bit too early to be asking that question about Truss, but we'll have to see. So before we go diving more into this question, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. And of course, down below, there's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, also the Pony Club down below as well. You can join the YouTube subscription where you get badges, emojis, and all that good stuff you can use. So, the question, the ultimate question, as I alluded to at the beginning, which a lot of people are going to be asking, who was worse, Johnson or Truss? And we always said, in the lead up to this, Truss was going to be bad, as was Johnson, but they're going to be worse in so many different ways. Because under Johnson had, he had Rishi Sunak. And Rishi Sunak, at least, had more, shall we say, economic knowledge, or at least economic sense about him, not to crash the economy. So it didn't really matter that there were fights in the cabinet office about all these different policies that the different factions and these different ideologues in the Conservative Party wanted to fulfill and do, because Johnson promised everything to everyone. And as we always said, that was the biggest problem. That as soon as he went, those battle lines would immediately start butting heads. And that is what we have seen immediately. We've seen it over the fracking. We've seen it over the mini budget, about some Tories saying, oh, it was too early to do this type of stuff. Other Tories saying it was completely uneconomical to do this. You've got Michael Gove coming out and saying this is not a conservative thing to do, this mini budget. So we've already had one U-turn. I wonder if we'll get more U-turns, but it is certainly going to be interesting to see how much the dynamic between Truss and Keating maybe changes. Maybe they become more antagonistic. We know that up until, now, I think there were rumors apparently that they were having an affair. I don't know how true that was. But whether or not that turned out to be true, I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this dynamic changes, because we saw Truss blame that 45%, for that's not 45%, the 45 pence, um, rate of tax. She blamed it on Katang. But as we've said before, it's in here, it's in here about getting rid of the tax rate, about what they wanted to do. So, uh, did she throw him under the bus or not? I suppose we might not know. We may never know. Maybe one day we'll get the memoirs of Truss and Katang, and we'll get the full story of what really went down, sort of in this period. But the fact that Truss, during what would normally be considered to be quite a honeymoon period, I mean, this Conservative conference was meant to be a big lap of honor, meant to be the victory lap. Hasn't really turned out that way when you've got MPs plotting as we speak to potentially change the rules and get rid of Truss. There is a consensus has been reached almost I think in the Tory party that keeping her there is not a good idea. And as we've said before, you do not become one of the most successful sort of political parties in the world by, well, keeping bad leaders in place for too long. But even the Tories know if they have another change of leader, they know that they're going to have to go to a general election, one which they will probably lose. And it's not, and even then, it's not probable. It's, shall we say, very, very likely they will lose, because I can't see who would you put in, even if you, let's say, put in, Rishi Sunak. Still not very likely to win it. But we knew Truss was a zealot, an ideologue from the start. And I think the question will be, was it really worth getting rid of Boris Johnson? Was it worth putting the pressure on Boris Johnson to resign and end up with Truss? And I always remember, guys, we've been saying, if Johnson goes, the decision will always come down to Truss or Katang. Not Truss or Katang. It'll be Truss or Sunak. That was always the choice. And we always said, look how popular Liz Truss is with the core base in the party. She would walk it. We always said, and she did. She did pretty much walk it. And what else could she end up doing in the meantime? I think a lot of damage, but we're going to have to keep a very close eye on what these Tories are now going to start doing, because one of the good things that has actually happened is that now Truss has surrounded herself with all those hardcore Brexit ultras, even more so than Boris Johnson. And this budget, pronounced by a lot of them, from Daniel Annan to the tax, the Taxpayers Alliance, the IEA, all these people that really heavily backed Brexit are backing her, are in her cabinet, or MPs and now in the cabinet table sitting around with her, all trying to justify that this was why we did Brexit, guys. This was it. This was the reason why we did it. Doesn't seem to be what many people really voted for back in 2016. But as always, the question of who was worse, Truss or Katang? Let me know. Not Truss or Katang. Truss or Boris or Johnson. Let me know what you think down below. so confusing with the names. It's like I always get Truss and May mixed up sometimes. In fact, I've done that in a video recently. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. Who do you think was worse, or how worse do you think Truss will get compared to Johnson? Like I say, let me know down below. And like I say, thank you very much for watching. And of course, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.